I stood in the hallway and listened to my daughter yell at her husband. "Kick that sick old man out of my house immediately. He's nothing but dead weight pulling us under." And the thing that stunned me wasn't what she said. It was watching my son-in-law pause for just a moment before agreeing with a nod. So when morning came, I silently gathered my things and walked out, taking with me a fortune of $15 million they never knew existed. What followed were weeks of their remorse and desperate pleas. Ignored phone calls, countless begging texts, and heartbroken sobbing outside my front gate. But it was too late. The lesson had already begun. Thank you for being here. Drop a comment with your city or country. I want to see where you're watching from. And tell me honestly, would you have done the same thing or handled it differently? Quick note, some parts of this story are dramatized for storytelling purposes. But the lesson about family, respect and boundaries is something we can all learn from. The folder sat in the passenger seat like a verdict. I kept glancing at it as I drove, crisp white paper, Dr. Martinez's letterhead visible through the clear plastic sleeve. Moderate heart failure. Manageable with medication and lifestyle changes. Life expectancy 15 to 20 years with proper care. 15 to 20 years. I was 63. That meant I could make it to 80, maybe 83 if I did everything right. It wasn't a death sentence. It was a roadmap. But I knew driving north on Scottsdale Road, the late afternoon sun turning the desert mountains amber, that the numbers wouldn't matter to Jessica. She'd hear heart failure and start doing math of a different kind. I turned into DC Ranch past the guardhouse with its terracotta roof and perfectly trimmed oleander bushes. 3 years I'd lived here. 3 years of paying $3,500 a month in cash, helping with the kids, keeping my head down in the guest bedroom that used to be Derek's home office. Jessica's white Lexus sat in the driveway, parked at a slight angle like she'd been in a hurry. I pulled in beside it and sat for a moment, hands on the wheel, staring at the house. Mediterranean style. 4 bedrooms. Pool in back. The kind of place that screamed new money, even though Derek and Jessica were stretching to afford it. I grabbed the folder and headed inside. The smell of rosemary and garlic hit me first. Something in the oven, probably chicken. Isabella's backpack was dumped by the stairs, one sneaker kicked off in the entryway. From somewhere upstairs, I could hear Liam's voice, high and bright, narrating some imaginary battle with his action figures. Normal, domestic. Safe. I set my keys on the console table. "Dad," Jessica's voice came from the kitchen. "That you?" "Yeah." I found her at the island chopping vegetables with sharp, efficient movements. She didn't look up. "Then how'd the appointment go?" I set the folder on the counter. "Not great." That got her attention. She glanced at the folder, then at me, her knife pausing mid-cut. "What did he say?" "Moderate heart failure. He wants me on new medication, some lifestyle changes." For a moment, something flickered in her eyes, concern maybe, or calculation, but it was gone before I could read it. "That's concerning," she said. Then almost immediately, "Is it genetic? Should I get checked? Not are you okay? Not what do you need? Is it genetic?" "He didn't say. I can ask." She went back to chopping. "Well, you'll just have to follow doctor's orders, I guess." Behind her, Derek came through the sliding door from the backyard, wiping his hands on his shorts. He'd been cleaning the pool filter, a weekend chore he never managed to finish before dark. "Hey, Thomas, everything okay?" Jessica answered before I could. "He's got a heart thing. Moderate failure. He'll be fine if he takes his pills." Derek's face shifted, brief concern, then uncertainty, like he wasn't sure what emotion he was supposed to perform. "Oh, wow, I'm sorry, man. That's rough." "It's manageable," I said. "Good. Yeah, good." He grabbed a beer from the fridge. Didn't offer me one. Jessica turned toward the dining room. "Kids," Dinner in 5. We ate at the table like we always did. Jessica at one end, Derek at the other, me across from the kids. Liam chattered about his day at school, something about a lizard on the playground. Isabella was quieter, watching me with those big, serious eyes. "Grandpa, are you sick?" Jessica's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "I'm okay, sweetheart," I said gently. "Just gotta take better care of myself." "You promise?" "I promise." She nodded but didn't look convinced. Jessica cleared her throat. "Bella, finish your chicken." The rest of dinner passed in near silence. Jessica scrolled through her phone between bites. Derek ate mechanically, eyes distant. I pushed food around my plate and felt the weight of the folder still sitting on the kitchen counter. After dessert store-bought cookies Jessica didn't bother plating, I helped clear the table. Derek stood by the sink, loading the dishwasher with the distracted efficiency of someone whose mind was already somewhere else. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the envelope. $3,500. Cash. Same as every month for the last 3 years. I held it out to Derek. "Here." He glanced at it, then took it without meeting my eyes. Didn't count it. Didn't say thank you. Just folded it in half and shoved it into his back pocket. Jessica watched from the doorway, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. For a second, our eyes met, and I saw at the flicker of something cold and appraising, like she was doing math in her head, and I wasn't adding up the way I used to. Then she turned and walked upstairs. Derek mumbled something about putting the kids to bed and followed her. I stood alone in the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of running water filling the silence. By 9, the house was quiet. Liam and Isabella were asleep. Derek and Jessica had retreated to their bedroom at the end of the hall. I sat in the armchair in my room, still fully dressed, staring at the diagnosis folder on the nightstand. Moderate heart failure. 15 to 20 years. I should have felt relieved. It could have been worse. But all I could think about was the look on Jessica's face when I'd handed Derek the envelope. That cold, appraising calculation, like I was a line item in a budget that no longer made sense. From somewhere down the hall I heard voices, muffled at first, then rising. I stood slowly and moved toward my door. The hallway was darker than I remembered. I stood just outside my door, one hand resting on the doorframe, the other hanging loose at my side. The overhead light had clicked off on its timer an hour ago. Now only the thin amber glow leaking from beneath Jessica and Derek's door gave any shape to the space. My heart was doing that thing again, the irregular flutter Dr. Martinez had warned me about. Avoid stress. Stay calm. Take your medication. I should have gone back into my room. Close the door. Let whatever was happening behind theirs stay behind theirs. But Jessica's voice, sharp and rising, pulled me forward instead. I took 3 careful steps. The floorboards knew to stay quiet. I'd learned their rhythms over 3 years. My palm found the cool plaster wall. I leaned in. "We need to talk about my father." Jessica's voice, cold, clipped, not the voice she used with clients or the kids. This was the voice she saved for when she'd already made up her mind and was simply waiting for Derek to catch up. "Jess, it's late." "I don't care. We're talking about this now." A pause. The rustle of sheets. The bed frame creaked. "He's sick," Derek said quietly. "You heard him. His heart." I know what he said. Her voice was ice. And honestly, I don't care about his heart. I care about what this means for us. Silence. "What are you talking about, Derek?" She exhaled sharply like she was summoning patience she didn't have. "He's not going to get better. You understand that, right? Moderate heart failure. That's not something you bounce back from. That's the beginning of the end. Jessica, and I am not going to spend the next however many years watching him decline in my house, in our house, around our kids. He's your father. He's a burden. The word came out flat and final. And I want him gone. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Colder than the diagnosis. Colder than anything Dr. Martinez had said. Gone. Derek's voice was uncertain. What do you mean, gone? I mean out, Derek. Out of this house. I want that sick old man out of my space, away from my children, and out of my life. The phrase hit me like a fist. Sick old man. Jesus, Jess. Don't Jesus Jess me. Her voice climbed. You know I'm right. He takes up the guest room, the room we need. Bella's been asking for an art studio for months. We could convert that space. Give her something she actually wants instead of keeping it as a hospice room for your father-in-law. He pays rent. Derek tried weakly. Jessica laughed. It was bitter. $3,500 a month, Derek. $3,500. Do you know what our mortgage is? $5,000. She was building momentum now, and I could hear Derek crumbling under it. He doesn't even cover half. And you know what else? That $3,500, that's our money. That's money we could be using for renovations, for the kids' schools, for literally anything other than subsidizing his retirement. He lost your mom 4 years ago. Jessica's voice turned sharp. 4 years, Derek. At some point you have to move on. But not him. He just lingers. And now he's pulling us down with him. There was a long silence. I stood in the dark hallway, hand pressed to the wall, absorbing every word. What do you want me to do? Derek finally asked. His voice was small, defeated. I want you to tell him. Tomorrow. Tell him we need the space. Tell him it's for his own good, for his health, whatever. But I want him out. 1 week. That's it. Jessica, I can't just... You can. And you will. Her voice dropped, turned cold and certain. Because if you don't, Derek, I will. And I won't be nice about it. Another long pause. I waited, hoped for Derek to push back, to say no, he's family, he stays. Okay. The word was barely a whisper. What? Okay. Louder now, but hollow. Resigned. I'll tell him tomorrow. I'll handle it. Good. The bed frame creaked again. A lamp clicked off. And just like that, it was decided. I stood there for another moment, letting the silence settle around me. Then I turned slowly, carefully, and walked back to my room, closed the door without a sound, sat down in the armchair by the window, still fully dressed, and stared at the dark shapes of furniture in the dim light. Sick old man. Burden. I want him gone. Not Derek's words. Jessica's, my daughter, my only child. The girl I'd raised, put through college, walked down the aisle. The one who'd cried at her mother's funeral and held my hand through the worst year of my life. And she'd just called me a burden. The hours crawled. I didn't sleep. Didn't even try. Just sat there replaying the conversation, feeling something cold and hard crystallize in my chest, where grief used to live. When the first pale light of dawn began to soften the edges of the room, I finally stood. Walked to the closet. Reached up to the top shelf. My fingers found the lockbox. Small. Fireproof. Coated with a combination. Only I knew. I set it on the bed and stared at it for a long moment. Inside that box were things Jessica had never seen. Things she'd never asked about. Bank statements, portfolio summaries, legal documents, secrets she never thought to wonder about. I didn't open it. Not yet. But I looked at the brushed steel surface catching the early light and felt something shift inside me. Jessica wanted me gone. Fine. I'd leave. But not the way she expected, not as the sick old man she could forget about. I'd leave on my terms. And when I did, she'd finally understand exactly what she'd thrown away. The coffee machine hissed and sputtered, filling the kitchen with the sharp smell of dark roast. I stood at the counter watching the carafe fill my hands, steady on the granite. I hadn't slept, but I'd showered, shaved, dressed in khakis and a polo. If Jessica was going to say what I knew she was going to say, I'd meet her looking like a man in control. Behind me, deliberate footsteps on tile, not Derek's shuffling morning walk. These were crisp, purposeful. "Morning, Dad?" Jessica's voice, clipped, professional, like she was about to fire an underperforming contractor. I turned slowly. She stood in the doorway, already dressed for the day, white blouse, dark jeans, hair pulled back. Derek was nowhere to be seen. Of course not. She'd sent him away for this. "Morning, Jessica. Coffee smells good. Want some? No thanks." She crossed her arms, leaned against the doorframe. "I think we should talk." I poured my mug, took a sip. "All right." She didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Dad, I'm going to be direct. With your diagnosis, your heart condition. Derek and I think it's time you had your own space. Somewhere you can focus on your health without all the chaos here. The kids, the noise. It's not good for recovery." I watched her face. Calm. Rehearsed. Not a trace of guilt. And we were thinking maybe a week to find somewhere and get moved. She said it like she was doing me a favor. I set my mug down carefully, met her eyes. "I understand completely." She blinked. "You do? Of course. You're absolutely right. I should have my own place. I'll start making arrangements today." For just a second, something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe relief, before the professional mask slid back into place. "Oh, well, good. That's very understanding of you, Dad. I appreciate you being honest with me, Jessica." She nodded slowly, studying me like she was trying to figure out if I was serious or setting a trap. "Okay, well, if you need help finding a place Derek can, I'll handle it. Don't worry." "All right then." She straightened, smoothed her blouse. "I'm glad we could have this conversation like adults." I smiled. It didn't reach my eyes. "Me too." She left the kitchen without another word. The moment her footsteps faded up the stairs, I pulled out my phone. 3 calls. That's all it would take. The first was to Gregory Sterling, my attorney for 15 years. He picked up on the second ring. "Thomas, what can I do for you? I need to move fast on something. How quickly can you draft documents if I need them?" "Depends. What are we talking about?" "I'll know in a day or two, but I want you on standby, and I need discretion." A pause. "Understood." The second call went to Andrea Walsh, my private banker at Chase. She'd managed my portfolio since the Reynolds development sale. "Mr. Reynolds, how can I help?" "I need to move some liquidity around. Quickly, this week." "How much?" I glanced toward the doorway. "Substantial. Cash deal. No contingencies. I'll confirm tomorrow." "We'll be ready." The third call was to Monica Bradford, a realtor who specialized in Paradise Valley. I'd kept her card for 2 years. "Thomas, it's been too long. What can I do for you?" I'm in the market. Paradise Valley. 3-bed, 2.5-bath minimum. Single story. Quiet lot. Mountain views if possible. Budget. Cash deal. No upper limit. I want to close in 5 days if the property's right. A beat of silence. That's aggressive. I'm serious, Monica. I can tell. Let me pull listings. Can you meet tomorrow, 10 a.m.? Perfect. I'll text you the address. Thomas, are you sure about the timeline? Completely. By noon, I'd started packing. Not frantically, just methodically. One box at a time. Around 2, there was a soft knock. Grandpa. Isabella stood in the doorway, eyes wide and worried. Hey, sweetheart. I set down the book I'd been wrapping. What's up? Are you leaving? I knelt down to her level. I am, yeah, but just to a new house, somewhere nearby. Why? Her voice was so small. Did we do something wrong? The question hit harder than Jessica's words had. No, Bella, you didn't do anything wrong. I promise. Then why are you going? Sometimes grown-ups need their own space. It's not about you or Liam. It's just something I need to do. She nodded, blinking back tears, and hugged me fiercely. I held her for a long moment. When she left, I stood alone in the half-packed room, jaw tight. That night, after Jessica and Derek had gone to bed, I sat in the armchair and opened the lockbox. Inside, bank statements, portfolio summaries, legal documents. The full picture of everything I'd built, everything I'd hidden. I pulled out the most recent statement, ran my finger down the columns. A cold smile tugged at my mouth. She thought I was a burden. She thought $3,500 a month wasn't enough. She had no idea. I closed the box, locked it. Tomorrow I'd see the house in Paradise Valley. And if Monica was right, if I could close in 5 days, this would all be over by the end of the week. I checked my phone. 1 week. That's all I needed. I'm very serious, I whispered to the empty room. And for the first time in 3 years, I felt like I was finally in control. Paradise Valley sits between Scottsdale and Phoenix like a secret. You can drive right past it without knowing it's there. No strip malls, no billboards, no chain restaurants. Just low-slung walls, gated drives, and the kind of quiet that only serious money can buy. Old money. The kind that doesn't need to announce itself. This wasn't DC Ranch with its HOA drama and Lexus lease payments. This was where Arizona's original developers and resort magnates had built their compounds back in the 60s, back when the desert was still wild and land was cheap if you knew where to look. Monica's silver Mercedes pulled up at exactly 10 a.m., and I climbed in with nothing but my phone and my checkbook. "Ready to find your next home?" she asked. "Ready." We drove north past manicured golf courses and adobe walls hiding estates you could only glimpse from the air. She handed me a folder with 3 listings, but I'd already seen the one I wanted online last night. "This first one is special," she said, turning onto a quiet street lined with Palo Verde trees. "Just listed 2 days ago. Motivated sellers." The house sat on a corner lot, at the end of a cul-de-sac surrounded by desert landscaping that looked effortless but cost a fortune to maintain. Smooth stucco exterior, flat roofline, floor-to-ceiling windows facing east toward Camelback Mountain. Modern desert architecture. Understated. Elegant. Monica unlocked the front door and stepped aside. The entry opened into a great room with 20-foot ceilings and walls of glass that framed the mountain like a painting. Polished concrete floors. The kitchen tucked to the left, white quartz and stainless steel island big enough to host Thanksgiving. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. A casita off the back courtyard. Mature landscaping. a private lot with no neighbors staring in. 650,000, Monica said. Priced fairly, but there's room to negotiate. I'll take it. She blinked. You want to make an offer? No. I want to buy it. Asking price. All cash. No contingencies. For a moment, she just stared. Thomas, are you sure? Don't you want to see the other listings? Maybe bring your family. I'm sure. She studied my face, then slowly nodded. All right. Let me make some calls. While Monica stepped outside, I walked through the house again. Let myself imagine it. Morning coffee in that kitchen. Reading by the windows with the mountain turning pink at dawn. A place that was mine. Fully mine. Not a guest room in someone else's house. Mine. I stood in the master bedroom and pulled out my phone. Opened my banking app. Looked at the balance I hadn't shown anyone in 5 years. $15,347,612. I'd built it carefully. The way I'd built everything. Reynolds Development Corporation started in 1985 with a duplex in Mesa. Helen and I fixed it up ourselves nights and weekends, painting and patching and saving every penny. We bought another, then a fourplex, then a small apartment complex. By the time Jessica was in high school, we owned 6 properties, and I'd started developing commercial projects, retail strips, office parks, the kind of unglamorous real estate that generated steady cash flow and appreciated quietly. Helen kept the books. She was sharper with numbers than I ever was. We grew. By 2020, Reynolds Development owned or had stakes in over 40 properties, shopping centers, office buildings, mid-rise residential projects in Tempe. That year, a private equity firm came knocking, offered $10 million cash for the whole portfolio. Helen and I talked about it for weeks. She was already sick, stage 3, though she insisted on working through treatments like nothing had changed. Take it, she told me one night. We've built something. Let someone else carry it forward. So I took it. $10 million. I paid taxes, paid off the house, set aside money for Helen's care. The rest I invested. REITs that paid steady dividends. Blue chip stocks, municipal bonds. Over 5 years, the $10 million became 15. Helen never got to see it. She died 8 months after the sale, and I was alone. Jessica called 2 weeks after the funeral, said the house must feel empty, suggested I come stay with them for a while. Just until you figure out what's next, Dad. The kids would love having you around. I said yes, and I made a decision. I wouldn't tell them about the money. Not yet. I wanted to see if they loved me for me. Not for what I could give them. Not for the inheritance they were already counting. It was a test. A test I'd hoped, prayed they would pass. Thomas. Monica was back smiling. The sellers accepted. All cash, no inspection. You just made their year. Good. We can close in 5 days if you can get the funds wired by Wednesday. I'll have my banker handle it tomorrow. She nodded slowly. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why the rush? I met her eyes. Because I need to be out of my current situation by the end of the week. She didn't press. Just nodded. Then let's make it happen. We sat at the kitchen island, my kitchen island now, and I signed the offer. 5 days. That's all it would take. By the time we climbed back into her Mercedes, the sun was high, and the mountain was bleached white with heat. Monica glanced at me. You know, I've been doing this for 20 years. I can usually tell when someone's running toward something or running away from something. I didn't answer. She smiled. Either way, I think you're going to be very happy in that house. I think so too. As we drove back toward DC Ranch, I thought about Jessica. Right now, she was probably Googling assisted living facilities, pricing out how much it would cost to get rid of me without feeling too guilty. And in 5 days, I'd be gone. Not to some depressing studio with shared dining and bingo on Tuesdays, to a house worth more than she and Derek would earn in the next decade combined. I pulled out my phone calculator. Did the math. Jessica made maybe $65,000 a year. Derek with commissions maybe 85. Total around $150,000. This house cost $650,000. I'd just bought it with cash. And they had no idea. I leaned back and let myself smile. 5 days. Day 7. The movers arrived at 8 a.m. sharp. Jessica's white Lexus was already gone from the driveway she'd left before dawn. I'd heard the engine start in the dark. Derek's truck was gone too. Neither of them had the courage to face me. I stood in the entryway while 2 men in matching blue shirts carried boxes out to the truck. Everything I owned fit in maybe 20 boxes. 3 years of living small. Living quiet. Living like I didn't matter. That was about to change. I walked through the house one last time while the movers worked. First the kids' rooms. Isabella's door was half open. Her bed unmade, stuffed animals piled against the pillows. A drawing taped to the wall stick figures holding hands, me and Grandpa, written in wobbly letters across the top. I stood there longer than I should have, felt something tighten in my chest that had nothing to do with my heart condition. Liam's room was chaos, Legos scattered across the floor, a half-built spaceship on his desk, superhero posters on every wall. I used to sit in here on Saturday mornings and help him sort pieces while he narrated elaborate stories about battles in space. I wondered if they'd even notice I was gone, or if Jessica would just tell them Grandpa had to leave and redirect their attention before they could ask why. I moved down the hall. The dining room where we'd had that last dinner. The table was already cluttered again, Jessica's laptop, a stack of mail, Derek's gym bag thrown across a chair, like I'd never been there at all. And then their bedroom. The door was closed, but I didn't need to open it. I'd heard everything I needed to hear through these walls. Get that sick old man out of my house. I turned and walked back to the kitchen. The movers were finishing up, hauling the last few boxes. I pulled an envelope from my pocket, $3,500 cash, same as always, and set it on the kitchen island. Then I took out a notepad and wrote, Jessica and Derek, thank you for your hospitality over the past 3 years. I found a new place and will be out before noon. Don't worry about the sick old man anymore. The envelope is this month's contribution. Dad, I read it twice. Considered adding something more, something warmer, something that might soften the edge, but decided against it. They'd hear what they wanted to hear anyway. I left the note beside the envelope, grabbed my keys, and walked out. At the mailbox by the street, I pulled the house key off my ring and dropped it through the slot. Heard it clink against the metal bottom. Done. The movers were already pulling away. I climbed into my car, my old Camry paid off years ago. Nothing flashy, and punched the address into GPS even though I'd already memorized the route. 17 minutes. That's how far Paradise Valley was from DC Ranch. 17 minutes, and I'd be in a different world. I drove north through Scottsdale, past the shopping centers and the golf courses and the endless stucco subdivisions that all looked the same. The morning sun was fierce, already turning the sky white at the edges. When I turned onto my street, the tension I'd been holding for 7 days started to loosen. Palo Verde trees, quiet pavement. No cars parked on the curbs because everyone here had 3-car garages. I pulled into the driveway of my house and stopped. My house, my gate, my address. Not a guest bedroom, not a temporary arrangement. Mine. The movers were already there, idling at the curb. I unlocked the front door and let them in, watched them carry boxes through the great room and down the hall to the bedrooms. It took less than an hour. When they finished, I handed the lead guy $500 cash as a tip. He blinked, looked at the bills, then back at me. "You sure, man?" "I'm sure. Thanks for making it easy." "Anytime. Good luck with the new place." They left and the house went quiet. I stood in my kitchen, and looked around. Boxes stacked against the wall. Furniture I'd need to arrange. A whole house to make my own. For the first time in 3 years, I had space. I found the box marked kitchen and dug through until I found the coffee maker. Plugged it in, filled the reservoir from the tap-scooped grounds into the filter. While it brewed, I walked to the windows and stared out at Camelback Mountain, dark and solid against the bright sky. Helen would have loved this view. I poured myself a mug, black no sugar, and stood at the island, letting the silence settle around me. No voices down the hall. No tension at the dinner table. No cold glances or calculations behind polite words. Just quiet. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. Derek's name lit up the screen. I watched it ring. Didn't answer. It went to voicemail. 10 seconds later, it buzzed again. Jessica this time. I set the phone face down on the counter and took another sip of coffee. It kept buzzing. Derek again. Then Jessica. Then Derek. By noon, there were 8 missed calls. I unpacked a few boxes, set up the bedroom, found the box with my clothes, and hung everything in the walk-in closet that was twice the size of the room I'd been living in. The phone kept ringing. By 6 p.m., when the sun was starting to sink and the mountain was turning gold, I checked the screen. 17 missed calls. 6 voicemails. I didn't listen to any of them. I made myself a sandwich, poured a glass of water, and sat on the back patio as the desert cooled and the sky bled pink and orange. Somewhere across town, Jessica and Derek were panicking, trying to figure out where I'd gone. Maybe worried, maybe just confused. Maybe finally wondering if they'd miscalculated. I took a bite of my sandwich and smiled. Let them wonder. Day 10. 72 hours of silence. No replies to texts, no returned calls. Just read receipts and the suffocating weight of knowing he'd seen every message. I'd sent 14 texts. Derek had sent 9. We'd left voicemails. We'd driven to Paradise Valley twice and stood at the gate pressing the call button until our fingers went numb. Nothing. The money was running out. We'd raised $72,000 by selling everything we could. The truck, the Lexus, jewelry, furniture. We had 18 days left to come up with another $163,000 and no idea where it would come from. At 9:55 a.m., my phone buzzed. Gregory Sterling. My office. 10 a.m. today. Both of you. Non-negotiable. I looked at Derek across our stripped-down living room. We'd sold the couch 2 days ago. We were sitting on folding chairs borrowed from his parents. "It's time," I whispered. He nodded, pale and silent. We drove in silence. The air conditioning in Derek's sedan barely worked. We couldn't afford to fix it. Sweat dripped down my back as we crawled through Scottsdale traffic. When we pulled into the parking garage beneath Gregory's building, I almost turned around and left. "No, we have to go in," Derek said quietly. "We have no choice." He was right. We rode the elevator to the 12th floor. The doors opened onto a lobby with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the desert. Beyond the glass, the city stretched toward the mountains, shimmering in the heat. Gregory's assistant showed us in without a word. The office was massive. Polished mahogany desk, leather chairs, bookshelves lined with legal volumes. A wall of windows behind Gregory's chair framed Camelback Mountain in the distance. Gregory stood behind his desk, arms crossed, expression unreadable. He was in his mid-50s, silver hair, crisp suit, the kind of lawyer who charged $1,000 an hour and was worth every penny. He didn't ask us to sit. He didn't say hello. "Mister," Reynolds wanted you to be informed of certain assets. Gregory said, his voice flat and professional. He slid a folder across the desk. Navy blue, embossed with his firm's logo. I opened it with shaking hands. The first page was a portfolio statement dated 3 days ago. Reynolds Family Trust, account summary. Total net worth $15,347,612. I stared at the number. My vision blurred. I blinked hard and read it again. $15,347,612. That can't be right, I whispered. Derek leaned over my shoulder, scanning the page. His breathing stopped. Gregory pulled out another document. A property deed, single-family residence, Paradise Valley, Arizona. Purchase price $650,000. Paid in full. Cash. No mortgage. No lien. Closing date 8 days after my father moved out of our house. Then bank statements. 3 separate accounts. One with Chase, one with a private wealth management firm I'd never heard of, one with a credit union. Balances $4,200,000, $6,800,000, $2,100,000. Then tax returns. 5 years' worth, all showing substantial income from investments, real estate holdings, dividends, interest, capital gains. My hands were shaking so hard, the papers rattled. Your father sold Reynolds Development Corporation 5 years ago, Gregory said calmly, like he was explaining a grocery list. The sale netted $8 million in cash after taxes and fees. He invested conservatively real estate investment trusts, dividend-paying blue-chip stocks, municipal bonds. Over 5 years with compound growth and reinvested dividends, that portfolio grew to just over $15 million. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt like it was caving in. He never needed your financial support. Gregory continued, his tone cold and precise. Not once. Not ever. He paid you $3,500 a month because he wanted to see what you would do with it. He wanted to see how you would treat him when you thought he was vulnerable. Derek's voice was barely audible. Then why did he take the money? Gregory looked at him like he was a child asking why the sky was blue. He didn't take it. You gave it, and he watched what you did with the fact that you thought he needed it. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped the folder. Papers scattered across the polished desk, fluttering to the floor. But the $3,500 every month, my voice broke. He said it was for rent, for household expenses. It was a test. Gregory said, his voice dropping lower, colder. He wanted to see if you loved him, or if you loved what you thought you'd inherit. He wanted to see if you'd care for him when he was sick and grieving, or if you'd see him as a burden the moment he became inconvenient. I felt Derek stiffen beside me. Gregory leaned forward, hands flat on the desk. You failed. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. No, I whispered. No, that's not fair. We thought... You thought he was poor, Gregory interrupted. You thought he was dependent on you. You thought you had leverage. You thought you were doing him a favor by letting him stay in your home. And the moment he became inconvenient, the moment his presence interfered with your plans, you threw him out. I opened my mouth, but no sound came. He heard every word you said that night, Jessica. My stomach dropped. Every single word. Derek made a strangled sound beside me. His face had gone gray. Get that sick old man out of my house, Gregory quoted, his voice eerily calm. He's a burden. He's dragging us down. I wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor. Gregory straightened and reached under his desk. He pulled out another folder. This one was thicker, heavier, black. He set it on the desk between us with a dull thud. He didn't open it. He just looked at us with those cold, unblinking eyes. "There's more," he said quietly. I stared at the black folder like it was a live grenade. "Much more. There's more." Gregory opened the black folder. The first page made my heart stop. Promissory note. Demand for payment. Principal amount $200,000. Down payment house purchase $75,000. Renovations, kitchen master bath. Backyard $125. 000 interest rate 5% per annum. Term 3 years. Total amount due $235,600 payment. Deadline 90 days from date of demand letter sent 3 days ago. At the bottom in black ink, clear as day. Jessica Reynolds Sullivan, Derek Sullivan. Our signatures. "What?" Derek's voice cracked. "What is this?" "When your father helped you buy the house 3 years ago," Gregory said, "you signed a promissory note. He gave you $200,000 $75 for the down payment, $125 for renovations. You agreed to repay it over 3 years at 5% interest." I couldn't speak, couldn't think. "You thought it was a gift," Gregory continued. "It wasn't. It was a loan. Legally binding, notarized, filed with the county." He turned the page. The note includes an acceleration clause. If the borrower, that's you, engages in conduct detrimental to the lender, the full balance becomes due immediately. Derek was shaking his head. "See, we didn't know. You signed it," Gregory said flatly. "Ignorance isn't a defense." He flipped to the next section. "Your father also kept meticulous records. Every month you received $3,500 in cash, ostensibly for rent and household expenses. But here's what actually happened." He slid across another set of documents. Bank statements. Wells Fargo. Account holder Jessica Reynolds Sullivan. Not joint. Just her name. Derek looked at me confused. "What account is this?" I couldn't answer. My throat closed. Gregory answered for me. "Your wife opened this account 2 years ago, without telling you. She's been depositing $2,500 a month into it. 36 deposits. Total $90,300. Derek turned to me, his face pale. "Jessica." I shook my head, tears streaming. I didn't." "You embezzled from your own father," Gregory said, "while he was grieving your mother, while he was sick. You skimmed 70% of the money he gave you every month and funneled it into a secret account." Derek stood up, backing away from me. "You told me we needed that money for the kids, for bills." Gregory wasn't finished. "She used $63,000 of it for plastic surgery." He laid out the next document. Scottsdale Plastic Surgery Center. Dr. Richard Pemberton. Services rendered. Facelift, $15,000. Neck lift, $8,000. Breast augmentation, $12,000. Liposuction abdomen flanks, $18,000. Botox and dermal fillers, $6,000. Recovery package private nurse. Luxury spa stay, $4,000. Total $63,000. Intake form, dated 6 months ago. Patient reports funding via inheritance money. Expresses excitement about finally investing in herself. Surgery date 8 weeks after my father's diagnosis. Derek stared at me like I was a stranger. "You told the doctor you used inheritance money," Gregory said. "Your father is still alive. Stiony, I covered my face with both hands, sobbing. Gregory turned the page again. And then there's this. Adult Protective Services Report number AZ-2024-47839 filed 3 days after Thomas Reynolds relocated. Allegations: memory loss, confusion, impulsive financial decisions, purchase of $650,000 home, potential need for guardianship. Filed by Jessica Reynolds Sullivan. Derek's voice was hollow. You tried to have him declared incompetent. I couldn't look at him. Gregory continued, relentless. APS investigated. They found your father fully competent, well-oriented, and in complete control of his faculties. The investigator noted that the home purchase was planned strategic and executed with legal and financial counsel. She closed the case and noted it appeared to be a family dispute, not an APS matter. He pulled out printed screenshots. Browser history, my laptop. How to get elderly parent declared incapacitated in Arizona. Does guardianship give access to parents' bank accounts? Can guardian sell parents' property without consent? Memory care, facilities under $5,000 per month. Then text messages. Between me and Amber Richardson. Jessica, I filed the APS report. Once I'm guardian, I control everything. The house, the money, all of it. Amber. Isn't that a little extreme, Jessica? It's for his own good. Plus, the kids need college money more than he needs some luxury mansion. The silence in the room was deafening. Derek turned to me, his face twisted with disgust and heartbreak. Who are you? I reached for him. Derek, please! He jerked away. Don't touch me. Gregory closed the folder. The total amount due, including the embezzled funds and the promissory note, is $325,900. You have 90 days. He slid a business card across the desk. Failure to pay in full will result in foreclosure on your home and criminal charges for embezzlement and filing a false APS report. Potential sentencing 5 to 12 years. I couldn't breathe. The room was spinning. Oh, Gregory added almost as an afterthought. Your father updated his will last week. You and Derek will inherit $100,000 upon his death. Total. Not each. Combined. The remainder, approximately $12.9 million, goes to charity. $2 million is in an irrevocable trust for Isabella and Liam. You'll never touch it. Derek collapsed into his chair, face in his hands. I looked at Gregory, desperate. Can I talk to him, please? No. Please, I'll apologize, You have 90 days, Gregory said. I suggest you start selling assets. He opened the door. We walked out in silence. In the parking garage, Derek sat in the driver's seat for 20 minutes, staring straight ahead. Finally, he started the car. We drove home. 87 days left, days 10 through 21. Jessica's dining room looked like a war room. Spreadsheets covered the table, printed columns of numbers, highlighted in yellow and pink, scribbled with notes in the margins. Every asset they owned, itemized. Every possible source of cash, calculated. Derek sat across from her laptop, open, running the math for the 4th time that hour. The truck, I can sell it for maybe $26,000, $27,000. Jessica nodded, making a note. I posted the Lexus. KBB says $43,000. You willing to let it go? She looked up. Do we have a choice? They didn't. By the end of week 1, they'd listed everything. Derek's truck sold in 3 days at $26,500 cash. Jessica's Lexus took longer, but a buyer from Tucson offered $43,000 flat. They sold her jewelry. The nice stuff, her mother's ring, the diamond earrings Derek had given her for their 10th anniversary, $1,800 at a pawn shop. Furniture went next. The sectional, the dining set, a vintage credenza Jessica had refinished herself. Posted on Facebook Marketplace, sold to strangers who haggled over $50 discounts. By the end of week 2, they'd scraped together $72,000. They still needed $163,000 more. 76 days left. Derek sat at the kitchen island, staring at the Chase Bank pre-approval form. He'd filled it out 3 times, tweaking numbers. He hit submit. 2 days later, Andrew Kim called. "Derek, hey, I got your application." And a pause. The kind that tells you everything. "I'm sorry, we can't approve it." Derek closed his eyes. "Why not?" "There's already a lien on your property, $200,000. With that kind of encumbrance, we can't extend additional credit." "What if we—" "Derek." Andrew's voice was gentle but firm. "The numbers don't work. I'm sorry." Derek tried 3 more banks over the next week. Wells Fargo, Bank of America, a local credit union. Same answer every time. Existing lien. Insufficient equity. Denied. By week 3, the social fallout had started. Jessica was in Whole Foods when she saw Amber Richardson in produce. Amber had been her closest friend for years. Yoga, wine nights, endless text threads about Scottsdale gossip. Jessica waved, smiled. Amber looked right at her and walked the other way. Jessica stood there, hand still raised, frozen. She found Amber 2 aisles over, pretending to study olive oil. "Amber." Amber turned slowly, forced a smile. "Oh, hey Jess. You didn't see me." "I was distracted, sorry." Awkward silence. "Oh, how are you?" Jessica tried. Amber shifted her weight, glanced toward the exit. "Good. Busy." Another pause. "Look, Jess." Amber lowered her voice. "People are talking." Jessica's stomach dropped. "About what?" "About you. Derek. Your dad." She glanced around. "I don't know all the details, but people are saying things. About how you treated him, and now he's in Paradise Valley, and you're selling everything." Jessica's face flushed. "It's complicated. I'm sure." Amber's tone was polite, distant. "But you know this town. People love a story." She walked away without waiting for a response. Jessica stood there in the middle of Whole Foods, surrounded by organic produce, and felt the walls closing in. That night, she checked Instagram. 12,500 followers 2 weeks ago. 10,200 now. The comments on her last post, Isabella's birthday party, were brutal. Saw interesting priorities. "How's your dad doing? Must be nice to throw parties while some people get thrown out." She deleted the app. The first real fight came at the end of week 2. Derek sat at the kitchen table, staring at the spreadsheet. "We're not going to make it." Jessica looked up. "Don't say that." "Jess, we have 72,000. We need 235. That's 163,000 short. 76 days left. We'll figure it out." "How?" His voice was louder now. "We've sold everything. The banks won't loan us anything. What's left? I don't know, but we can't just give up." "I'm not giving up. I'm being realistic." He stood pacing. "Do you get what we did? We threw out a sick old man, your father, because we didn't want him taking up space. And now we're losing everything anyway. Maybe we deserve it." Jessica's face went hard. "Don't put this all on me. I'm not—" "Yes, you are. You're acting like I forced you." But you agreed, Derek. You stood there and said okay. Because you screamed at me until I did. His voice cracked. You always do that. You push until I give in because it's easier than fighting. And this time, he stopped, took a breath. This time I should have fought you. Jessica stood, hands shaking. Get out. What? Get out. I can't look at you right now. Derek stared at her, then grabbed his keys and left. The door slammed. Jessica stood alone in the dining room, surrounded by spreadsheets and itemized failure. She grabbed her phone, opened the text thread with her father. Dad, please, can we talk? Sent. Read. She waited. 1 minute, 2, 5. No response. I'm sorry. I know I messed up. Please just talk to me. Read. Nothing. She called. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. 15 more times. Same result. Finally, she sat in her car in the Whole Foods parking lot and broke. Not quiet tears. Full, gasping sobs. A security guard knocked on her window 20 minutes later. You okay, ma'am? She nodded, wiped her face, started the car, and drove home to a house that felt like it was already gone. Day 18. I drove to David Porter's office that morning. An unmarked building off Shea Boulevard, nothing fancy, just a second-floor suite with frosted glass, and a nameplate that read, Porter Investigations. I'd found him through Gregory, former FBI forensic accountant, 20 years tracking financial fraud and white-collar crime before going private. 52 years old, graying at the temples, sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Methodical in a way that reminded me of myself. When I walked in, he didn't waste time with pleasantries. Mr. Reynolds, have a seat. I sat across from his desk, clean organized, a single open laptop and a yellow legal pad covered in neat handwriting. He folded his hands. Gregory said you need a deep dive. Financial records, communications, legal actions. How deep are we talking? All the way to the bottom. He nodded slowly. That'll take time, and it won't be cheap. I don't care about cheap. I care about thorough. Fair enough. He pulled out a contract, slid it across. I'll need authorization to access certain records. Bank statements, emails, phone backups, credit reports. Gregory can get me subpoena power if necessary, but it'll move faster if you sign off on everything up front. I signed without reading, pushed it back. How long? 10 days. Maybe less if they're sloppy. They're sloppy. He allowed himself a small smile. Then I'll have something for you by the end of the month. I stood, shook his hand. Find everything. I always do. Days 18 through 28 were the longest of my life. I stayed in the Paradise Valley house unpacking, slowly setting up routines. Morning coffee by the windows. Afternoon walks around the neighborhood past houses that cost more than most people made in a lifetime. Evenings on the patio watching the desert cool and the sky turn shades of pink and orange that never got old. I didn't answer calls. Didn't respond to texts. Didn't check the voicemails that piled up, 47 from Jessica, 32 from Derek, a handful from numbers I didn't recognize. I knew what they'd say. Apologies. Explanations. Bargaining. I didn't care. Instead, I waited. On day 22, my phone rang. David's name on the screen. I've got something. Can you come in? I'll be there in 20 minutes. I was there in 15. When I arrived, I saw 2 folders on his desk. One red, one black. Both thick. He gestured to the chair. I sat. Let's start with the red one, he said. He opened it slowly, like a lawyer presenting evidence. pulled out a stack of bank statements neatly highlighted in yellow. Wells Fargo. Savings account opened 24 months ago. Sole account holder Jessica Reynolds Sullivan. Derek Sullivan is not listed as a joint owner or authorized user. As far as I can tell, he has no idea this account exists. I leaned forward, hands clasped. Go on. He slid the statements across to me. 36 deposits over the past 3 years. Every single one for exactly $2,500. Always within 2 to 3 days of the first of the month. I looked at the dates. The amounts. All identical. All perfectly timed. You were giving them $3,500 a month, David continued. She was routing $1,000 to their joint checking account for household expenses, mortgage, utilities, groceries. The other $2,500 went straight into this account. Every month, like clockwork. I did the math. $90,000. $90,300 to be exact. I stared at the numbers. 36 rows of $2,500. 3 years of taking my money I'd given in good faith money I thought was helping them stay afloat and hiding it. Oh, what's she spending it on? He pulled out another document. Thicker this time. Medical records. A consultation summary from Scottsdale Plastic Surgery Center Dr. Richard Pemberton's letterhead at the top. Initial consult 14 months ago. Follow-up appointments every 3 months since. She's been planning this for over a year. He slid the procedure list across to me. I read it slowly. Facelift, $15,000. Neck lift, $8,000. Breast augmentation, $12,000. Liposuction abdomen and thighs, $18,000. Botox and dermal fillers, $6,000. Recovery package private nurse medications, $4. 000 total, estimated cost $63,000. Below that, in smaller print, a note about post-op care. A week at a luxury spa in Sedona. Another $4,000. At the very bottom, a handwritten note from the intake form dated 6 months ago. Patient states she is using inheritance money to fund procedures. Expressed excitement about finally being able to invest in herself. I read it twice. Then I set the paper down. Carefully, slowly. When's the surgery scheduled? He flipped to another page. 8 weeks after your diagnosis. She booked it the same week you told them about your heart condition. The room went quiet. I could hear the hum of the air conditioning. The faint sound of traffic outside. My own breathing slow and controlled. She was spending my money, I said quietly. Money I gave her for rent and groceries, on plastic surgery, and she told the doctor it was inheritance money. He nodded. While you were still alive. While you were living in her house paying her bills. I sat back in the chair. Let the anger settle. It wasn't the hot, explosive kind. It was the cold kind. The kind that doesn't yell or break things. The kind that calculates. Jessica hadn't just wanted me gone. She'd been counting on me being gone. Planning for it. Budgeting for it. Scheduling elective surgery with money she thought she'd inherit the moment my heart finally gave out. Anything else in the red folder? Text messages, he said. Between Jessica and a friend, Amber Richardson. Discussions about the surgery. About how it's finally happening. About how she deserves this after everything. He slid a printed transcript across to me. I skimmed it. Jessica, I booked the date. 8 weeks from now, I'll finally look the way I'm supposed to. Amber, OMG, yes, you've earned this. Jessica, I know. And honestly, the timing is perfect. Once Dad's situation is handled, I can focus on me. I closed the folder. What's in the black one? His expression shifted. Something darker. That one's worse. He pushed it across the desk to me. Day 25. I sat across from David Porter again, and this time his expression was different. Harder, like he'd seen something that bothered him even after 20 years of digging through people's worst secrets. He tapped the black folder. "You need to brace yourself for this one." I didn't say anything, just waited. He opened it. The first document he pulled out was an official form, Arizona Department of Economic Security Adult Protective Services. Case number AZ202447839, filed 3 days after I'd moved out. I read the header, then the complainant's name, Jessica Reynolds Sullivan. "She reported you," I said quietly. He nodded. "Filed a formal complaint alleging you were a vulnerable adult in need of protective intervention." I scanned the allegations section. Cognitive impairment. Subject exhibits confusion, memory loss, and inability to make sound financial decisions. Financial exploitation risk. Subject recently purchased a $650,000 home impulsively without proper consultation or planning. Self-neglect. Subject isolated himself from family, refuses contact, may be unable to care for himself. Recommendation: emergency guardianship evaluation to determine capacity and appoint legal guardian if necessary. I set the paper down. Looked up at David. "She tried to have me declared incompetent." "Yes." 3 days after I left. "Yes." I sat back. Let that sink in. He pulled out another stack of papers. This is her browser history, recovered from her laptop. I read the search queries he showed me, time-stamped over the past 3 weeks. The "How to Get Elderly Parent Declared Incapacitated in Arizona." Does guardianship give access to parents' bank accounts? Can guardian sell parents' property without consent? Best memory care. Facilities under $5,000 per month, Scottsdale. How long does emergency guardianship take in Arizona? Each search dated, each one building a clear picture of intent. She wasn't just trying to get me out of the house. She was trying to take everything. He slid another document across to me. Text messages. A thread between Jessica and Amber Richardson. I read them slowly. Jessica, day 12, I filed the APS report. Once I'm his guardian, I control everything. The house, the money, all of it. Amber, wait, seriously? Isn't that a little extreme, Jessica? It's for his own good. He's clearly not thinking straight. Who buys a house that expensive without even talking to their family? Amber, I guess. Jessica, plus, the kids need college money more than he needs some fancy mansion he's going to die in anyway. Amber, Jess. Jessica. What, I'm being practical. If I don't do this, he'll blow through everything and leave us with nothing. I read it twice, then a third time. Did she really think this would work? David leaned forward. Guardianship cases can move fast if the allegations are credible. If APS had agreed with her assessment, they could have filed for an emergency hearing. Within 2 weeks, she could have had legal control over your finances, your property, your medical decisions. You'd have been effectively stripped of your rights. And then what? She locks me in a memory care facility. That's exactly what. He pulled out another printout and handed it to me. She'd already toured 3 facilities: Sunset Ridge in North Scottsdale, Desert Horizons in Fountain Hills, Silverleaf Memory Care in Tempe, all within her budget once she had access to your accounts. I stared at the brochures, the smiling staff, the beige hallways, the locked doors. She'd been planning to put me away, not because I needed it, because it was convenient. What stopped her? He turned to the final page in the folder and handed it to me. An official APS report. Investigator Maria Santos. Date of visit: day 15. Location: Paradise Valley Residence. Findings: subject alert-oriented times 3 articulate, demonstrated clear understanding of recent property purchase, provided documentation showing planned financial decisions over multiple weeks with attorney and banker consultation, home clean, well-maintained, subject in good physical health, managing medications appropriately. Assessment: no evidence of cognitive impairment, financial exploitation, or self-neglect. Subject demonstrates full capacity for independent living and financial management. Conclusion: case closed. Family dispute, not APS matter. Recommend parties seek private mediation or legal counsel. I read the last line again. Case closed. She'd tried and failed, but the attempt was on record. Does Derek know about this? I asked. He shook his head. No indication he was involved. All the searches, all the communications, they're from Jessica's devices. Derek's name doesn't appear anywhere. So she was doing this alone. Appears that way. I sat there staring at the 2 folders in front of me, red and black. $90,000 stolen. A false APS report. A plan to strip me of my rights and lock me away so she could take everything I'd built. All while I was sick. All while I was grieving her mother. I picked up my phone, dialed Gregory. He answered on the second ring. Thomas, I need you to update the terms. What are we adding? Everything. The embezzlement, the APS report, the guardianship attempt. I want it all documented. I want it in writing, and I want them to know I found it. There was a pause, then quietly. Are you sure? I'm sure. This is going to destroy her. She tried to destroy me first. Another pause, longer this time. All right. I'll draft the amendments. We'll schedule another meeting. Soon. Soon. I hung up, set the phone down. David was watching me. You okay? I didn't answer right away. Just looked at the folders again. Red for the money she stole. Black for the freedom she tried to take. My daughter. I said slowly, stole $90,000 from me, lied to the authorities, and tried to have me locked up so she could take the rest. All of this while I was sick, while I was mourning her mother. I looked up at him. There's a level of cruelty I didn't know existed. Not in strangers, not in enemies. I paused. In family. He didn't respond, just nodded. I stood, gathered the folders. Thank you for your work. You going to be all right? I looked at him. I don't know yet. I walked out of the office, folders under my arm, and drove back to Paradise Valley. That night I sat alone in the great room, the folders open on the coffee table, a glass of bourbon untouched beside them. I thought about Helen, about what she'd say if she could see this. She'd be heartbroken. But she'd also tell me to protect myself. So that's what I was going to do. Day 31. I arrived at Gregory Sterling's office an hour early. Told him I wanted to watch, wanted to see their faces when they walked in, and realized what was waiting for them. He'd set it up perfectly. 2 folders on his desk, red and black. The glass walls framing the desert. The polished surface reflecting the morning light. I stood in the hallway outside his office door, cracked just enough to see through. Gregory had positioned himself so I'd have a clear view of the chairs where Jessica and Derek would sit. At 10 a.m., I heard the elevator chime. Watched them step out into the reception area. Jessica looked like she'd aged 5 years in 3 weeks. Face-drawn makeup, failing to hide the dark circles under her eyes. Derek's shoulders were slumped, his shirt wrinkled like he'd slept in it. They thought they were here to negotiate the debt. They had no idea what was coming. Gregory greeted them at the door, gestured to the chairs. They sat. I watched through the gap, hand on the door frame, barely breathing. "Thank you for coming," Gregory said. His tone was professional, neutral. "Before we discuss any potential terms regarding the promissory note, there are some additional matters we need to address." Jessica leaned forward slightly. "Additional matters." I watched Gregory reach for the red folder, open it slowly, pull out the Wells Fargo bank statements and slide them across the desk. Jessica stared at them. Her face went pale. "These are from a savings account in your name," Gregory said. "Opened 24 months ago. 36 deposits over 3 years each for $2,500. Total $90,300. Derek leaned over to look. His brow furrowed. "What account? You're not listed on it," Gregory said. "Jessica is the sole account holder." Derek turned to look at his wife. "Jess." She didn't meet his eyes. It's my savings account." "Savings?" Gregory's tone didn't change. "Let's be precise. Your father-in-law provided $3,500 per month in cash for 3 years. You deposited it into your joint account. Then you systematically transferred $2,500 of it, 71%, into this private account. That's not savings. That's embezzlement." I watched her face crumble. Watched Derek's confusion turn to shock. Gregory pulled out the next document. Medical records, consultation summary, procedure breakdown, slid it across. Jessica's hands started shaking. Derek picked it up, read the header. I watched his face go from confused to shocked to something darker. "Scottsdale Plastic Surgery Center," he read aloud. "Dr. Richard Pemberton. Consultation for..." He trailed off, kept reading. His voice got quieter. "Facelift, breast augmentation, liposuction. Total cost $63,000. He looked up at Jessica, eyes wide. "What the hell is this?" She didn't answer. Gregory spoke instead. "The surgery was scheduled for 8 weeks after your father-in-law's diagnosis. The deposit $15,000 was paid from the Wells Fargo account. The balance was to be paid in full the week of the procedure." Derek was still staring at his wife. "Ooh, you were planning plastic surgery with his money." "Derek, to $63,000. Jessica flinched. Gregory pulled out another page. "This is from the intake form. A note written by the doctor during the consultation." He read it aloud, slowly, clearly. "Patient states she is using inheritance money to fund procedures. Expressed excitement about finally being able to invest in herself." The silence that followed was suffocating. I watched Derek set the paper down like it burned his hands. Watched him turn to Jessica. "You told the doctor you were using inheritance money." "I didn't mean he wasn't even dead yet." Derek's voice was rising, shaking. "You were spending his money on plastic surgery and telling people it was your inheritance while he was still alive. While he was sick. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like?" "Jessica." I'd been standing in the hallway the entire time, listening, waiting for the right moment. This was it. I opened the door. Walked in slowly. Jessica and Derek both froze when they saw me. I closed the door behind me, walked to the empty chair at the head of the table. Sat down, looked directly at my daughter. "So," I said quietly, "how did it feel?" Jessica's mouth opened, closed. No words came out. "Planning your surgery while I was mourning your mother. Scheduling your facelift while I was learning to live with heart failure. Spending my money on Botox and liposuction while telling people it was your inheritance." My voice was calm, steady, but every word landed like a hammer. Your mother lost all her hair to chemo. She would have given anything to grow old naturally, to see her face wrinkle and her body change because it meant she was still alive. And you, I paused. Let the weight settle. When you stole from your sick father to erase the very signs of aging she would have treasured. Jessica's face crumpled. Tears started streaming down her cheeks, but she didn't make a sound. Derek looked like he'd been punched. I reached across the table, picked up the black folder, opened it, pulled out the APS report, set it in front of them. And then there's this. Derek picked it up, started reading. His lips moved silently at first, then audibly. Subject exhibits confusion and memory loss. Purchased a $650,000 home impulsively. Maybe unable to care for himself. He looked up at me, then at Jessica. Recommendation, emergency guardianship evaluation. His voice was shaking now. Not with anger, with something worse, horror. You filed a report with Adult Protective Services. Jessica was crying harder now, but still couldn't speak. Gregory pulled out the next document. Browser history. Handed it to Derek. Derek read it aloud, voice barely above a whisper. How to get elderly parent declared incapacitated in Arizona. Does guardianship give access to parents' bank accounts? So can guardian sell parents' property without consent? He set the paper down, looked at his wife like he'd never seen her before. You were trying to take everything. Jessica finally found her voice. I was trying to protect him. Protect him. Derek's voice exploded. You were trying to lock him up. You were going to put him in a memory care facility and take his house. To keep him safe. To keep his money. Derek stood up so fast his chair tipped backward and hit the floor with a crash. He grabbed the text messages, read them out loud, his voice shaking with rage. Once I'm his guardian, I control everything. The house, the money, all of it. He looked at her. The kids need college money more than he needs some fancy mansion he's going to die in anyway. Jessica was sobbing now, hands covering her face. Derek turned to me. His face was white. I didn't know. I swear to God, Thomas, I didn't know about any of this. I looked at him, studied his face. The shock was real. The horror was real. I believe you. He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for hours. Then he turned back to Jessica. You were going to lock him in a care facility, strip him of his rights, take his money, put him away like he was garbage. Jessica couldn't answer, just kept crying. Derek's voice dropped. Quiet now. Cold. What kind of person does that? He looked at her for a long moment. Then he turned to Gregory. I want out. Comment 1. If you're still here, I need to know who's staying until the end. Quick note. This story blends real lessons with dramatized details. Not everything is literal. If that's not for you, feel free to exit now. But if you want to see what happens next, stay with me. I watched Derek standing there, chest heaving, staring at Jessica like she was a stranger. You were going to lock up your own father. His voice wasn't loud anymore. It was worse than that. It was cold, controlled, the kind of anger that's already made its decisions. Jessica couldn't look at him, couldn't look at me, just sat there with her hands over her face, shoulders shaking. Derek turned to me. I defended her. When people started talking, when Amber turned her back, when the social media comments got nasty, I defended her. I told myself maybe we'd made a mistake, but we'd fix it. He looked back at Jessica. But this isn't a mistake. This is criminal. Derek. Jessica's voice was barely audible. No. He cut her off. You don't get to explain this away. You stole $90,000. You planned to lock him in a memory care facility. You filed a false report with the state. You tried to strip him of his rights so you could take everything he built. He stepped closer to her chair, leaning down so she had to look at him. Your father gave us $126,000 over 3 years, paid for this house, helped with the kids, and you wanted to destroy him. Jessica was sobbing now, words coming out in broken fragments. I wasn't thinking. I panicked. I thought. You thought what? Derek's voice rose again. That you could steal from a sick old man, that you could lie to the government, that you could lock him away and nobody would notice. She didn't answer. Couldn't. Derek straightened, turned to me. His face was pale, but his eyes were clear. Thomas, I didn't know about any of this. The account, the surgery, the APS report. I swear to God I didn't know. I looked at him for a long moment, studied his face. The shock was real. The horror was real. I believe you. He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath. If you want to press charges against her, I'll testify. I'll tell them everything. Whatever you need. Gregory cleared his throat. Before we discuss criminal charges, let's review the updated terms. He pulled out a new document, set it on the desk. These are non-negotiable. If you refuse any part, or if you violate any condition, the criminal charges will be filed immediately. Jessica finally looked up, face streaked with tears and mascara. Gregory began reading. Financial obligations. Original promissory note $235,600. Embezzled funds $90,300. Total amount due $325,900. Payment deadline 60 days from today. Derek's face went gray. 60 days, we had 90. The timeline has been adjusted to reflect the severity of the additional offenses. Gregory continued. Criminal exposure. Embezzlement Class 4, felony 2 to 5 years. Filing a false APS report Class 6 felony up to 3 years. Attempted fraud via guardianship Class 5 felony up to 5 years. Total potential sentence 5 to 12 years in state prison. Jessica made a sound like a wounded animal. Signed confessions for all 3 offenses will be held in escrow. 1 violation of the terms, and they'll be filed with the county attorney's office. Derek sat down slowly, like his legs wouldn't hold him anymore. Estate changes. Mr. Reynolds's will has been permanently updated. Jessica and Derek Sullivan will inherit $100,000 total upon his death. Not each. Total. $2 million will be placed in an irrevocable trust for Isabella and Liam Sullivan, accessible when they turn 25. Jessica Sullivan will have no access, no control, and no say in the management of those funds. The remainder of the estate, approximately $12.9 million, will be distributed to charitable organizations. Gregory paused. Let that sink in. Therapy requirements. Jessica Sullivan individual therapy twice per week for 1 year minimum. Couples therapy with Derek Sullivan once per week for 1 year. Family therapy including Mr. Reynolds twice per month contingent on his willingness to participate. Proof of attendance required monthly. He turned the page. Public accountability. Jessica Sullivan will issue a written public apology to be shared on social media and sent to family members and close friends. The apology must acknowledge the embezzlement, the false APS report, and the attempted guardianship. wording subject to Mr. Reynolds's approval. Jessica's hands were shaking so badly she had to grip the arms of her chair. Visitation with grandchildren. All visits with Isabella and Liam will be supervised by a neutral third party for a minimum of 6 months. Mr. Reynolds reserves the right to extend or terminate this arrangement at his discretion. Gregory closed the folder, looked at them both. You have 60 days to pay $325,900. You will attend every therapy session. You will issue the public apology. You will comply with every condition. 1 violation, 1 missed payment, 1 skipped session, and the criminal charges are filed. Are we clear? Silence. I watched Derek nod slowly. Yes. Jessica whispered, yes. Gregory looked at me. I nodded. He slid the document across. Sign. Derek signed first hand, steady despite everything. Jessica's signature was barely legible, her hand shaking too hard to write clearly. When they finished, Gregory collected the papers. You'll receive copies via email within the hour. The 60-day clock starts now. I stood, looked at my daughter. She was still crying, still trembling, still unable to meet my eyes. I don't want you in prison, I said quietly. Not because you don't deserve it, but because Isabella and Liam need their mother. Even if she's a deeply flawed one. Jessica flinched. You're going to sell everything. Work every hour you can. Attend every therapy session. And you're going to remember every single day that you tried to lock your father in a cage so you could take what he built. I paused. Let the weight of it settle. This is your last chance. Do you understand? Yes, she whispered. I'm so sorry, Dad. Sorry isn't enough. My voice was still calm, still controlled. Changed behavior is what matters. Prove it. I turned and walked toward the door. Behind me, I heard Derek stand. My truck gets listed tonight, he said to Jessica, voice flat. Your Lexus tomorrow. We're moving. Moving. Jessica's voice was small, broken. To Mesa, where I grew up. Where rent is $1,200 a month instead of $3,500. You're about to learn what real life costs. I opened the door, stepped into the hallway, didn't look back. The elevator doors closed behind me. I rode down 12 floors in silence, watching the numbers descend. When I reached the ground floor, I walked out into the Arizona sun, bright, harsh, unforgiving. I stood there for a moment, feeling the heat on my face. They had 60 days. They had each other. They had their children. They had a choice: change or destroy themselves completely. What they built from here wasn't my responsibility anymore. I climbed into my car and drove back to Paradise Valley. Back to the house with the mountain views and the quiet and the space that was entirely, completely mine. And for the first time in 3 years, I felt something close to peace. Days 32 through 49. I didn't see any of this myself. I was in Paradise Valley, living my quiet new life, trying to find peace in routines and silence. But I heard about it later, some from Gregory, who stayed in loose contact with Derek. Some from Derek himself weeks later when he finally worked up the courage to call. And some from the letter Jessica eventually wrote, the one Dr. Sarah made her write as homework. This is what happened while I was learning to live without them. Derek sold his truck on day 1. I heard he posted it early morning, had a buyer by noon. $26,500 gone in 8 hours. Jessica's Lexus went on day 3. Derek told me later she just stood in the driveway and watched a stranger drive it away. Didn't say a word. Just watched. By day 7, they'd left DC Ranch. They moved to Mesa, to an apartment complex where Derek's parents had lived 30 years ago, back when Derek was a kid, before he'd clawed his way into finance and met Jessica and convinced himself he'd escaped. 2 bedrooms, 800 square feet, $1,200 a month. Gregory told me the details, said Derek looked haunted when he signed the lease. 4 bedrooms down to 2, 2,400 square feet down to 800. The kids, my grandchildren, had to share a room now. Bunk beds. Derek assembled himself while Jessica unpacked in silence. Most of their furniture didn't fit. The sectional, the dining table, sold for whatever they could get. They ate on a folding card table from a thrift store. Jessica's closet full of designer clothes. Derek said she sold it all on resale sites. What was left fit in one dresser. Discount store basics. Jeans she wouldn't have been caught dead in before. I tried not to feel satisfaction when I heard that. Tried not to let the vindictive part of me enjoy it. I mostly succeeded. The first night in that apartment. Derek told me later, Jessica stood at the kitchen window and whispered, "How did we end up here?" And Derek, already exhausted, already doing the math that wouldn't work, said because we threw away the one person who could have stopped it. She didn't argue. By week 2, Gregory said the real grind had started. Derek kept his day job, 40 hours. Then every night, 6 to midnight, he drove for a rideshare service, 70 hours a week, sometimes more. Jessica worked her marketing job during the day. Weekends, she picked up retail shifts at a boutique in Tempe. $10 an hour plus commission. The kids' activities got cut. Soccer, piano, art classes, all gone. Isabella asked why she couldn't go back to dance. Jessica had to explain they couldn't afford it. Derek's voice cracked when he told me that part. By week 7, they'd scraped together $98,000. They still needed $227,000 more. It wasn't going to happen. Even Derek knew it. Even Jessica, in whatever space inside herself she was still capable of being honest, had to know. The social collapse was complete by then, too. Jessica deleted her social media accounts on day 40, Gregory said. The public apology she'd been forced to post had gotten 1,200 comments, most of them vicious. She couldn't take it anymore. Just erased herself. Amber Richardson blocked her on everything. When Jessica ran into her at the grocery store, Amber turned and walked away without a word. The other moms at school stopped inviting Isabella to playdates, stopped talking to Jessica at pickup. By week 5, Derek was handling school runs because Jessica couldn't face them anymore. I wish I could say I felt bad about that. I didn't. Therapy started on day 10. Dr. Sarah, their therapist, gave Jessica an assignment during the 3rd session. Derek told me about it later. His voice quiet, ashamed. Write a letter. To me. Explaining what she'd done and why. Jessica resisted for weeks. She showed up to therapy, cried through the sessions, but the letter stayed unwritten. Week 6. Dr. Sarah told her something that finally broke through. You can't heal what you won't face. Jessica tried to deflect. Said she knew what she'd done. Dr. Sarah didn't let her. Knowing isn't the same as facing. You haven't looked at what that says about who you became. Jessica's hands started shaking. I was desperate. You were cruel. Derek said Jessica left that session and sat in her car for 20 minutes, shaking so hard she couldn't drive. Week 7, Dr. Sarah handed her a notebook. Write the letter. Tonight. Don't overthink it. Just write what's true. That night, Derek told me after he'd gone to bed, Jessica sat at that folding card table with the notebook open. Her hand was shaking, because facing it meant admitting what she'd become. I didn't know any of this yet. Wouldn't know for weeks. All I knew was that somewhere across town, my daughter and her husband were working themselves to exhaustion, trying to pay a debt they'd never be able to cover, trying to survive the consequences of what they'd done to me. And I sat in my house in Paradise Valley drinking my morning coffee, watching the mountain turn gold in the sunrise, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not satisfaction. Not vindication. Just peace. They'd made their choices. Now they were living with them. And for the first time since Helen died, I wasn't responsible for fixing anyone else's life. I was just responsible for my own. I didn't see most of week 7 firsthand, but Gregory kept me updated. And Derek called me once late at night, voice hoarse from exhaustion. He told me what happened, what changed. Derek was driving for the rideshare service one night, week 7, maybe day 45, when a pickup request took him through DC Ranch, his old neighborhood. He told me he had to pull over, just sat there in the dark engine idling, staring at the gated entrance, the guardhouse, the manicured lawns. I didn't miss it, he said on the phone. I thought I would, but I didn't miss the place. I missed the person I thought I was back then. The person who believed he'd made it. There was a long pause. Turns out I never made it at all. I just ran farther from where I started. Gregory told me about Derek's therapy breakthrough a few days later. Individual session. Week 7. Doctor. Sarah had been pushing him for weeks to talk about Mesa, about growing up poor, about why he'd married Jessica in the first place. Finally, he cracked. I grew up in poverty, Derek told her. Gregory got this from the therapy notes Derek had authorized him to see. Real poverty. When I met Jessica, this woman from a family that had money, that had stability, I thought I'd escaped. He paused. But I didn't escape poverty. I just traded one kind for another. I ran from being poor in money to being poor in character. Dr. Sarah asked him what he meant. I ran from poverty so hard that I ran right past integrity, right past decency, right past everything that actually matters. At the end of the session, Dr. Sarah asked him what he needed to do now. Derek's answer, I need to stop running. Gregory said Derek started talking to the kids differently after that. Isabella and Liam had been confused, scared. They didn't understand why they'd moved, why Grandpa was gone, why kids at school were saying mean things. Derek sat them down one night, week 7, day 47, and told them the truth. Grandpa loves you both very much, but Mommy and Daddy hurt him. We made bad choices, and now we're trying to fix them. Isabella asked if Grandpa hated them. No, sweetheart. Never. He could never hate you. The kids saw something honest in him that night. Something real. They started to understand. Jessica finally wrote the letter. Week 7, day 48. She'd been avoiding it for weeks, the homework assignment Dr. Sarah had given her. Write a letter to me, explain what she'd done and why. That night, she sat down at that folding card table and picked up the pen. Gregory showed me the letter later, with Jessica's permission. The opening line, Dad, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't know if I deserve for you to read it, but Dr. Sarah says I have to write it anyway. So here it is. The truth. She confessed everything. The embezzled money, the lies, the APS report, the guardianship plan. And then near the end, I became someone Mom would have been ashamed of. I became someone I'm ashamed of. I don't know how to fix that. I don't know if I can. But I'm trying. She never sent it to me. It was just for therapy. But Gregory said writing it broke something inside her. Something that needed to break. The call came on day 49. I was on the patio watching the sunset paint Camelback Mountain gold when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Hello? Grandpa. I froze. Grandpa, it's Isabella. My heart clenched. Bella, I managed. Sweetheart. How did you... I found your old number in Mommy's phone. Her voice was small, shaking. Are you mad at us? No. The word came out fierce. Never, sweetheart. Never at you. Mommy cries all the time. Daddy works all day and all night. We moved to a new house and it's really small and the kids at school say mean things. She was crying now. Did we do something wrong? Is that why you left? I closed my eyes, gripped the phone. I know, baby. You didn't do anything wrong. The grown-ups made mistakes, big mistakes. But not you. Not Liam. Never you. Do you? She hiccuped. Do you still love us? The question gutted me. Always, I said, voice breaking. Forever, no matter what. Do you hear me, Bella? No matter what happens, I will always love you and your brother. She cried for another minute. I listened, let her get it out. Finally, she whispered, I miss you, Grandpa. I miss you too, sweetheart. Can we see you, please? I took a breath. Soon. I promise. Soon. After she hung up, after I heard her little voice say goodbye, I sat there on the patio for a long time. The mountain turned from gold to purple to shadow. I picked up my phone. Called Gregory. Thomas. How much have they raised? 98,000. Not even a third of what they owe. Are they still trying? Every therapy session. Every payment. Derek's working 70-hour weeks. Jessica's doing everything Dr. Sarah asks. They're trying, Thomas. They're really trying. I was quiet for a long moment. Set up a meeting. Coffee shop. Neutral ground. 1 week from now. You're sure? I thought about Isabella's voice. Did we do something wrong, an 8-year-old child carrying the weight of adult mistakes? I'm sure. After I hung up, I sat there with the phone in my hand, Isabella's voice echoing. Do you still love us? She shouldn't have had to ask that. Liam shouldn't have to wonder why Grandpa left. They were collateral damage, innocent casualties in a war they didn't start. This wasn't justice anymore. This was spillover harm. I'd set out to teach Jessica and Derek a lesson about consequences, about respect, about valuing family over money. But the lesson was hitting the wrong people. I looked out at the mountain now dark against the stars. Have I become the monster while trying to teach the lesson? I whispered to the empty patio. I didn't have an answer, but I knew one thing. It was time to find out if Jessica and Derek had actually learned anything, or if this was all just performance, survival, desperation wearing the mask of change. 1 week. Then I'd know. Week 8, day 56. I arrived 15 minutes early and picked a table in the corner of a small coffee shop in Old Town Scottsdale 1 with floor-to-ceiling windows facing east toward Camelback Mountain. I ordered black coffee and sat with my back to the wall watching the door. At 10 a.m., exactly, Jessica and Derek walked in. They looked smaller somehow. Derek wore a wrinkled polo shirt and jeans that had seen better days. Jessica's face was bare, no makeup, hair pulled back in a messy bun. Dark circles under her eyes. She'd lost weight. They spotted me and hesitated near the entrance. For a moment I thought they might turn around and leave. I nodded once. They came over and sat down across from me. Neither spoke first. I let the silence stretch. Let them marinate in it. Finally, Jessica broke. Dad. Her voice cracked. Thank you for agreeing to meet. I didn't respond, just waited. Derek cleared his throat. Mr. Reynolds, He stopped, swallowed hard. I don't know where to start. Start with the truth. I said flatly. Jessica's hands shook as she folded them on the table. I stole from you $90,000 over 3 years. I lied about it. I filed a false report with Adult Protective Services. I tried to have you declared incapacitated so I could control your money. I said terrible things. I poisoned our kids against you. Her voice broke completely on the last sentence. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I became someone Mom would have been ashamed of. Derek spoke next, his voice barely above a whisper. I grew up poor, in Mesa. When I married Jessica, I thought I'd escaped it. But I didn't escape, I just traded one kind of poverty for another. I was so afraid of going back that I traded my integrity for a house I couldn't afford and a life I didn't earn. He looked at me, eyes red. I let her talk me into kicking you out. I knew it was wrong. I did it anyway. I studied them both for a long moment. Why are you apologizing? I asked. Because you got caught. Because you owe me $325,000. Or because what you did was wrong. Jessica flinched like I'd slapped her. Because it was wrong, she said quietly. Because I hurt you. Because I hurt my kids. Because I became a monster. Derek nodded. We've been in therapy. Individual and couples. Doctor. Sarah's been helping us face what we did. Jessica wrote you a letter. I read it, I interrupted. Gregory had forwarded it to me weeks ago. Jessica's eyes widened. You did every word. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. Then you know I'm not asking you to forgive me. I don't deserve that. I just... Her voice broke again. I just need you to know I'm sorry, and I'm trying to be better. I took a slow sip of my coffee. Let the weight settle. You've raised $98,000, I said finally. That's more than I expected. Derek exhaled, shoulders sagging slightly. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. The debt is reduced to $90,000. The rest is forgiven. Jessica's mouth opened. Derek stared at me like he hadn't heard correctly. You keep the money you've saved. Use it to start over. The promissory note is satisfied. Dad. I held up a hand. I'm not finished. They both went silent. The will doesn't change. You each get $100,000 when I die. Not a dollar more. Isabella and Liam's trust remains at $2 million locked until they're 25. You don't touch it. Ever. Jessica nodded quickly. Of course, we wouldn't. You continue therapy for at least 1 year. Individual couples and family when I'm ready. You provide proof of attendance every month. We will, Derek said. You issue a public apology at your cousin Karen's house. Full accountability. Embezzlement, the APS report, the guardianship attempt, all of it. Jessica paled but nodded. And the criminal confessions you signed stay in escrow with Gregory. 1 violation, 1 missed session, 1 lie, 1 attempt to access the kid's trust, and they get filed. Understood, Derek whispered. I leaned back in my chair. This isn't mercy. This is pragmatism. Isabella called me 2 weeks ago. She was crying. She asked if I still loved her. An 8-year-old shouldn't carry that weight. Jessica covered her mouth with both hands, sobbing quietly. I'm doing this for them, I said. Not for you. Derek's voice was hoarse. We understand. I paused, then added, but I will say this. You've done the work so far. You've shown up to every session. You've sold everything. You've lived in that apartment without complaint. That counts for something. Jessica looked up, eyes wide with fragile hope. But love and trust are different things, I said firmly. I love you. I always will. But trust that takes years, and you'll have to earn every inch of it. She nodded, tears streaming. I know. I finished my coffee and set the cup down. There's one more thing. This Saturday, 10 a.m., same place. Bring Isabella and Liam. Jessica's breath caught. Really? Supervised visit. A neutral third party will be there. If it goes well, we'll schedule another. If it doesn't, zero contact for 6 months. Derek nodded quickly. We'll be here. I stood, leaving a 20 on the table. Don't be late. Saturday morning, 10 a.m. I arrived early again, same table, same black coffee. At 10 exactly, Derek's sedan pulled up. Isabella and Liam climbed out, both dressed neatly. When Isabella saw me through the window, she froze, then broke into a run. I met her at the door. She crashed into me, arms wrapping around my waist, sobbing. Grandpa. I knelt down and held her. Hey, sweetheart, I missed you. I missed you too. Liam stood behind her, uncertain. I opened one arm and he stepped in. Behind them, Jessica and Derek stood by the car, tears streaming down both their faces. I looked at them over the kids' heads. This wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a start. 4 months after the coffee shop. I stood on my patio in Paradise Valley watching the sunset paint Camelback Mountain gold and copper. My phone buzzed. Derek. The kids have their school play tonight. You're welcome to come. No pressure. I stared at the message for a moment. 3 events in 4 months. Each one a little easier than the last. I typed back, I'll be there. My life had found a rhythm again. Every morning I woke at 6, made coffee, and took my heart medication. My condition was stable, manageable. Tuesdays and Thursdays. I mentored young entrepreneurs at a nonprofit downtown, helping them avoid the mistakes I'd made when I was starting out. Saturdays, I met Isabella and Liam for breakfast. No supervisor required anymore. Once a month, I volunteered with a local housing nonprofit, swinging hammers alongside strangers half my age. I'd learned something unexpected in these 4 months. I liked being alone. I liked my house, my space, my independence. But having them back in my life with boundaries, with accountability, that was okay too. It hadn't been easy getting here. 2 months earlier, Karen Mitchell had opened her house in Arcadia for what she called a family conversation. 20 members of our extended family gathered in her living room. Aunts, uncles, cousins, a few close friends. I sat in the back corner, arms crossed, watching. Jessica stood at the front, hands trembling as she held a single sheet of paper. Derek stood beside her, pale and rigid. Karen had asked me if I wanted to say something first. I declined. This wasn't my moment. Jessica cleared her throat and began to read. 2 months ago, I kicked my father out of my home while he was sick. I called him a burden. I told my husband to get that sick old man out of my house. Her voice cracked, but she kept going. I stole $90,000 from him over 3 years to pay for plastic surgery. I lied and said it was inheritance money. I filed a false report with Adult Protective Services trying to have him declared incapacitated so I could control his finances. Someone in the room gasped. I kept my face blank. I told my children their grandfather abandoned them. I poisoned them against him because I cared more about money and status than family. Tears streamed down her face now, but she forced the words out. I was wrong. Horribly, unforgivably wrong. I became someone my mother would have been ashamed of. Someone I'm ashamed of. She paused, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. I'm in therapy. I'm working every day to become someone my father might forgive. I don't know if I'll ever get there, but I owe him the truth, and I owe all of you the truth." She folded the paper and looked at Derek. He stepped forward, voice hoarse. "I enabled her. I went along with it. I knew it was wrong, and I did it anyway because I was afraid. Afraid of being poor again, afraid of losing what we had. I'm just as guilty. We both are." The room was silent. Karen finally spoke. "Thomas, what do you want from this?" I stood slowly and walked to the front. I looked at Jessica, at Derek, then at the faces of my family. "I want you all to witness," I said quietly. "To witness what happens when you forget what matters, when you choose money over people, when you let fear turn you into someone you don't recognize." I turned to Jessica. "Your mother raised you better than this. I raised you better than this. You lost your way. The question now is whether you can find it again." Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. I looked at the room. That's all. 3 months earlier, I sat in that same coffee shop waiting for the first unsupervised visit with my grandchildren. Liam spotted me first and broke into a sprint. "Grandpa!" I caught him and lifted him up, holding him tight. He smelled like syrup and shampoo. Isabella approached more slowly, eyes uncertain. "Are you still mad?" I set Liam down and knelt in front of her. "I was never mad at you. Not ever. Not for 1 second. But Mom said—" "Your mom made mistakes," I said gently. "She's fixing them. But you two, you're perfect. I love you. Always." Her lip trembled, and then she was crying, arms around my neck. We ordered pancakes. We talked about school, about friends, about nothing important, and everything important. Laughter came easier than I expected. Normalcy was creeping back in. Jessica and Derek still lived in Mesa. They could have moved by now. They paid off the $90,000 in month 5 right on schedule. But they chose to stay. Derek kept one job and drove rideshare 1 night a week, not because he had to, but because it kept him grounded. Jessica worked full-time, deleted all her social media, lived simply. Therapy continued. Their marriage was different now. Derek had a voice, boundaries, respect. They were rebuilding. I stood on the patio, phone in hand, the message about the school play still glowing on the screen. "I'll be there." I meant it. Redemption isn't a moment. It's not a tearful apology or a signed confession. It's the accumulation of 1,000 small choices made when no one's watching. It's showing up. It's doing the work. It's proving through action, not words, that you've changed. Jessica and Derek were doing that work. Day by day, session by session, dollar by dollar. And I was learning to let them. Evening, the elementary school auditorium was packed with folding chairs and anxious parents clutching programs and holding phones up to record their kids. I walked in and scanned the crowd, looking for familiar faces among the sea of strangers. Jessica and Derek sat near the middle 3 rows from the front. Jessica saw me first and raised her hand in a small wave. Derek nodded. I nodded back and took a seat 2 rows behind them. Close enough to be present, far enough to respect the boundaries we'd built over these 4 months. Liam turned around in his seat, eyes lighting up when he spotted me. "Grandpa, you came?" "Wouldn't miss it," I said. He grinned wide and turned back around, practically vibrating with excitement. The lights dimmed. The curtain opened. Isabella stood stage left, dressed head to toe in brown and green construction paper. A tree. Not the lead roll, not even a speaking part. But when the narrator said, "And the forest stood tall and strong," she stretched her arms high and held the pose with absolute seriousness and commitment. I smiled. She was glowing. The play lasted 20 minutes. A simple story about seasons-changing animals finding shelter and the importance of roots. Isabella never moved from her spot, never broke character. When the final curtain fell, she beamed at the audience like she'd just won an award. I clapped louder than anyone. After the show, parents crowded the hallway. Kids ran around in half-removed costumes high on adrenaline and juice boxes. Teachers tried to corral the chaos. Jessica found me near the exit. "Dad, thank you for coming." "Of course," I said. "She's my granddaughter." Derek stepped up beside her, hands in his pockets. "We're going for ice cream down the street. You're welcome to join us if you want." I looked at him, then at Jessica. There was hope in their eyes, but no expectation, no pressure. They'd learned. "Next time," I said. "But send me pictures." They both nodded. Relief, not disappointment. "We will," Jessica said quietly. Isabella came barreling down the hallway, Liam close behind. "Grandpa, did you see me? Did you see me?" I knelt down and caught her in a hug. "You were the best tree I've ever seen." She giggled. "I didn't even have any lines." "Didn't need them," I said. "You stole the show anyway." Liam hugged me from the side, squeezing tight. "Are you coming for ice cream with us?" "Not tonight, buddy. But I'll see you Saturday morning, okay, pancakes?" "Okay." He ran off to rejoin his parents. Isabella lingered for a moment, looking up at me with those serious eyes. "I'm glad you came, Grandpa." "Me too, sweetheart." She smiled and ran after her brother. I watched them go, a small family navigating their way through the crowd. Imperfect, trying, healing. I walked to my car alone. The drive home took me past DC Ranch. I slowed as I passed the gate where I used to turn in 3 times a week. The house where I'd lived for 3 years, paying cash rent every month, watching my daughter slip further into greed and entitlement. I didn't feel anger anymore when I saw those gates, just distance. That chapter was closed. Paradise Valley welcomed me back with quiet streets and mountain views. I parked in my driveway, unlocked my front door, and poured 2 fingers of bourbon. Neat. No ice. I stepped out onto the patio. The city lights twinkled below, stretching toward Phoenix in a blanket of gold and white. The air was cool, the sky clear and deep. Camelback Mountain loomed in the distance, dark against the fading twilight. I thought about Helen. "I think you'd be proud," I said aloud to the night. "Not of what Jessica did, but of what I did after. Justice without cruelty. Mercy without weakness. I held the line. But I also left the door open. Helen would have done the same. She was tougher than people thought. Kind, yes, but never a pushover." Inside on the side table near the couch sat 2 framed photos. One old Jessica at 6 years old sitting on my shoulders at the Grand Canyon laughing with her whole face. Helen had taken that picture. I remembered the day perfectly. One knew Isabella and Liam at the coffee shop 3 months ago. Syrup on their chins, joy in their eyes. Pure and unfiltered. Innocent. The test had failed. Jessica had chosen money over me, over her own father. But my grandchildren had passed. They loved me for me. That was enough. My phone buzzed on the table. A photo from Derek. The whole family at a small ice cream shop, faces covered in chocolate and whipped cream. Isabella held up a cone bigger than her head. Liam's tongue was bright blue. Jessica and Derek smiled in the background, tired but genuine. The caption read, "Thank you for not giving up on us completely." I stared at the photo for a long moment, saved it, then typed back, "Keep going. I'm proud of your progress." I set the phone down and returned to the patio, glass in hand. Betrayal, justice, mercy. healing. That was the arc. That was the story. Jessica would never inherit millions. The will was final. $100,000 upon my death, and not a penny more. The rest would go to charity, to Isabella and Liam's trust, to causes that mattered. But she'd earned something more valuable than money, the chance to become someone worth respecting. The opportunity to rebuild trust one day, one session, one honest conversation at a time. And I'd gotten my grandchildren back, my peace back, my life back. Helen would approve. I stood at the railing looking out over Paradise Valley. The house I'd bought with cash, the independence I'd reclaimed, the dignity I'd restored. But it wasn't the house that made this home. It was knowing I'd done the right thing, the hard thing. Teaching the lesson that needed teaching, then offering the grace that made the lesson stick. I took a slow sip of bourbon, felt the burn, and smiled. Finally, completely, I was home. Looking back now, I see the full picture clearly. This family story taught me what money truly reveals about people. Not their worth, but their priorities. Not their love, but their limits. My dad's revenge wasn't about cruelty. It was about truth. Forcing my daughter to face the person she'd become. Holding up a mirror until she couldn't look away. God gave me 15 to 20 years after that diagnosis. I could have spent them bitter, isolated, poisoned by resentment. Instead, God showed me a different path, justice tempered with mercy, accountability paired with redemption. God doesn't ask us to be doormats. He asks us to be wise. Don't misunderstand this family story. I'm not the hero here. I made mistakes too. I let the test run too long. I watched my daughter spiral and told myself I was gathering evidence when maybe I was just nursing my own hurt. The lesson isn't dad revenge. It's boundaries. If someone shows you who they are, believe them. But also believe they can change if they do the work. Not words. Work. Therapy. Accountability. Time. Protect yourself. Protect your peace. But leave the door unlocked if they prove they've earned the key. Love them. But don't let them destroy you. That's what God taught me on that patio in Paradise Valley, looking out at the city lights with bourbon in my hand and my grandchildren's laughter still echoing in my ears. Some family story situations require dad revenge, not out of spite, but out of love. Tough love. The kind that says, I won't let you become a monster, even if it costs us both everything. And in the end, God willing, maybe we all come home. I appreciate you staying with me to the very end of this journey. Drop a comment with the number 2. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to know you made it all the way through. A quick note. This narrative contains fictional and dramatized elements designed to illustrate important life lessons. If it's not your style, no worries. There's plenty of other content out there. But if it spoke to you, consider subscribing and sharing this with someone who needs to hear it. Stories like these matter.